freshers. So that's the reason why Linux is used. So what internships can we do related to embedded and which company? When it comes to internship, many are offering internship. It depends on the market need and time. You can go as an intern, understand how to do application validation, how to develop a basic software, how to work with a completely new microcontroller, which is of a different architecture. So if you ask me, companies, there are ample number of companies, like from OEM to tier 1 to tier 2. Everybody is offering internship, and everybody has a different policy for offering internship. So I cannot generalize that. So for Linux, is there a simulator or app which we can practice? So you can freely download Ubuntu, and you can start with Ubuntu by installing Ubuntu in your PC itself. You don't require a simulator kind of a thing. Or if you want to run a Linux inside Windows, you can use softwares like VMware or a VirtualBox to practice Linux. So how a fresher in electrical engineering could join this field of job? It's, as I told you, you should familiarize yourself with one advanced architecture, one programming language, and one operating system, and prepare a very strong portfolio of projects that will really help to get you a job in this field. So AutoSAR is focused on embedded software development. So corporate industries, which AutoSAR are used? It's a good question. I have seen even there is a free AutoSAR that's available in the market that is used by many corporates. Other than this, you have very costly operating systems. You have AutoSAR based operating system, which is widely used in automotive industry. You have QNX, you have which is very similar to Linux again, and you also have VxWorks. So there are many operating systems, many proprietary operating systems which are designed by different corporates. Can you suggest any web resource to start as a beginner to understand about automotive embedded system design? Rather web resource, I'll recommend a book. If you want to start with understanding automotive electronics, I would recommend a book called as Understanding Automotive Electronics by William Ribbins. Why it is hard to configure the settings of STM32? No. To answer Isha's question, it's not hard to configure the settings of STM32. It is straightforward. So you need to have a proper understanding, and you need to refer the data sheets very clearly. So it comes with the practice. It's not a rocket science, or it's not very hard. What is interfacing? Interfacing is nothing but connecting. If you are connecting an external device with your microcontroller, technically it is called as interfacing. Wherever there is some sort of data exchange happening, it's for that there should be an interface available. That's it. What is void pointer in embedded C and why it is used? So its void pointer is not something that's coming especially on embedded C. It's a feature that's available in normal C. So if you want to or if you have declared a variable as a void pointer, which means it can be typecasted and it can be further used to hold a pointer of any size, which means you can use the same variable to hold the pointer of a character or to hold the pointer of an integer and so on. What exactly is AutoSAR? It's a very good question from Anjuman. So AutoSAR is the off-the-shelf embedded software that was written and sold in the market as a product. You can buy that off-the-shelf stack and you can configure that stack and you can port that on your target microcontroller. So you don't want to do repeated same code again and again, because these are things now available as a reusable software stack, reusable, configurable software stack. So automotive made that as a standard practice more than a decade. For that, they laid a standard that's called as AutoSAR. These are quite expensive. Dharmaraj, which are quite expensive? When you say these are quite expensive, the boards that I have shown are not really quite expensive, or the software that we are speaking to that required to work with these boards are really free. I didn't get, if you take a BeagleBone Black, it costs 4,500 rupees. If you take a board like STM32, you have boards that's available at the cost of 1,200 rupees or 1,500 rupees. In our college, we have been taught with Keel software, but only basic codes are taken. Should I keep practicing more program on the same software? Yes, it is good if you have exposed to Keel. The point is, Keel is just an IDE. No matter which IDE you use, but the point is what microcontroller, what target platform that you are working, and what is the architecture it is following. It's nothing to do with Keel. You can use any other IDE for that same application. So it's good always if you keep practicing more. So what is the difference between IoT and embedded system? Again, this very interesting question coming from Isha. So IoT means Internet of Things. So IoT is a subset, I would call, our application of an embedded system. IoT is an embedded system, whereas in IoT, we are allowing an embedded system to send a data to the cloud or read a data from the cloud. So cloud is nothing but your internet. That's why it is called as Internet of Things. So in the term Internet of Things, that particular thing is an embedded system, which is connected to an internet. That's it. So embedded system belongs to software or hardware. Arvind is asking, it is combination of both hardware and software. So to write that software, one has to know the hardware architecture, or your work would be writing software for a particular hardware architecture or for a particular application. Can you please send the certification link? I think Mary would be taking care of that. What is AutoSAR? We have already answered. Is there a microcontroller simulator for Linux if I don't have a hardware? Yes, you have microcontroller simulator for Linux as well as for Windows. There are multiple microcontroller simulators that are available. You can choose one from pick one from AVR. The one that I will recommend is, which is user friendly, is called as simulide. This particular simulator is very user friendly. It supports both PIC as well as AVR based controllers. The name of the simulator is simulide. SIMULIDE. Okay, what is AutoSAR? Again, the same question. So AutoSAR is a off-the-shelf product, which is an embedded software, configurable embedded software, written and sold in the market. And you can buy that and you can directly port it. So interested to change the domain from electrical CAD design to embedded system. Is it a good idea for a 6-year experienced person? If you are a 6-year experienced person, I would say you are on the verge of losing your opportunities. But anywhere, if you are less than 7 years, you can give a try. But if your experience is more than 7 years, I will not generally recommend you to switch the career. So what are a real-time embedded system? So as the example that I told you, airbag is a real example of a perfect example of a real-time embedded system. Sorry, I was speaking of ARTAS from QNX and other suppliers. Okay, so QNX is quite costly. I agree. And yeah, to answer Dhamraj's question, QNX is quite costly and free. You can use embedded Linux, which is openly available, and many free tools, cross compiler, everything is offered for free, which could be best replacement to start with learning OS. Or you can use for real-time application, you have free ARTAS, which is free. and you can do with that also. So you have, when it comes to software, you have plenty of options, which is actually free. So what is a peripheral device? Let's say, for example, in your application, you use a LCD screen. So that LCD screen could be a peripheral device. So what are the difference between inline and the macro function? So again, inline is a keyword which tells the compiler, or which notifies the compiler, if possible, try to expand this function here itself. Whereas macro function is not exactly telling the compiler to do that. Inline may or may not can be expanded as an inline thing, whereas macro, it would be expanded on the place wherever it is written. Physically, when I say physically, it would be copying. That's the difference. So it's always good to use inline if your function is very small and you are doing something on embedded. So what is dynamic memory in C? So dynamic memory is something that is there in your RAM. If you are writing a program which allows, or the program itself allows you to allocate memory during the runtime, that's what we call it as dynamic memory allocation or dynamic memory. So usually it will be storing the heap memory of your RAM, and we have functions in C to do that, like malloc, calloc, realloc. All these functions will help you to do dynamic memory allocation. As a student, is it good to start with 8051 by Mazdi? Yes. If you are a beginner, if you are studying third year, it's excellent book to start with 8051 with Mazdi. But try out the embedded C example, C-based example given in the Mazdi textbook. So what are the best books and skill available online to go to hardware, embedded and core? So if you are completely new, you can look into the embedded offerings of Skill-Lync, and you will get better, more understanding. And we offer a very industry aligned course on embedded system, which covers from prerequisite from level 0, and we cover bit of advanced topics which may not be covered from the textbooks. If you are looking for an online resource, just have a look at the Skill-Link's embedded program, PG Masters embedded program. So Arduino, ARM, Raspberry Pi, which is a better software, better for software application. So in industries, it's good to learn ARM, because if you learn ARM, you can migrate to anything and you can work with anything. So do we have Python based embedded system? Yes. If it's a very minimal segment, I don't know how good it is used and how popular it is used for industrial application. For college and academic based projects, people do Python based embedded system, but when it comes to real-time practice, mostly it is C and C++. So difference between normal C language and embedded C language. So it's again a very common question that we used to hear. There is nothing called as embedded C language by itself. It's a simple, it's usually the C language. C language offers a set of features that can be used for embedded software development. Let's say, for example, C offers an operator called as bitwise operator, a bit shift operator, which performs left shifting, right shifting. So this is very useful for setting the microcontroller's register value. And C gives a feature called as conditional compilation. Again, this is a very important feature that could be you can write scalable embedded softwares with doing conditional compilation. So which types of processors are used in embedded systems? So when you ask types of processor, we have ARM, Cortex, A series, M series, depending on the application, depending on the need. So if there is a processor, then it is called as an embedded system. What is the flash memory and its application? Usually the flash memory allows you to read and write data very fastly, and it is found as the ROM of your microcontroller. It's very similar to the memory that we see with our memory card. how the hardware board is configured in such a way that it communicates with the software. I didn't get that question, Rajesh. How did the hardware board is configured in such a way that it communicates? So the board should have a proper device driver, and board should have a on-chip peripheral into it, based on which you want to communicate with the software. Is Raspberry Pi is better than Arduino? So Arduino is a kind of a platform that's used for different kind of application. A Raspberry Pi is a kind of a different kind of hardware used for different application. Whereas you can build some real-time switching application using Arduino, whereas Raspberry Pi is a bit heavy for, or it's not. I would not say heavy. It may not be suitable for real-time application. So both are better in their own way. It's actually a wrong means to compare Raspberry Pi and Arduino. You can compare Raspberry Pi with BeagleBone Black. You can compare STM with STM hardware with Arduino. That will make sense. Embedded in automotive system involves only embedded C and assembly level programming. No, it will not use any assembly level program. It will use embedded C and embedded C++, or it will use C and C++. What is the difference between normal embedded system and automotive embedded system? In the way, what difference between normal microcontroller? So automotive embedded system uses something called as automotive grade microcontrollers. These automotive grade microcontrollers are subjected to maximum amount of vibration and subjected to maximum amount of temperature withstand. So that's it. So in all the other sense, that's also an embedded system. As a second year electronics student, what should I do after learning 8051? After learning 8051, try to learn a C program based 8051 programming, or if you have learned that, how to write C code on 8051. If you have learned that, you can move with understanding ARM. That would be your next step. Once you're comfortable with ARM, you can move towards embedded Linux and FreeRTOS. What is the mean of MCU? What is the meaning of MCU, and what are the uses of this in embedded system? Nice question. MCU stands for microcontroller unit or microprocessor unit. So usually these terms are alternatively used. These are the core processing unit of any embedded system. Anushka again asking, what should be the knowledge of a student to get an internship in the field? As I told you, it is completely depending, or it's something that completely depends on the time at which you run this, you apply for this internship, and what is the job opening available that time. If you ask me, a good C programmer and someone with very good knowledge on writing device drivers for ARM has a fair chance of getting into an internship. Does laptop is an embedded system? Okay, MCAL is what? Rajesh is asking, laptop is an embedded system. The answer is no, because laptop is not designed to do a dedicated functionality. Although it has processor, it has hardware, it has software, it is not dedicated for doing one particular functionality. So as per the definition, we should not call that as an embedded system. What is MCAL? MCAL stands for microcontroller abstraction layer. So this forms the basic layer in your AutoSAR software stack, which is nothing but a driver software. That's it. So please send me the link. What is the difference between SRAM, flash, and the RAM? Usually RAM and SRAM are same, which means static RAM. When you remove the power, the data that you have stored would be removed, which is non-volatile. Which is volatile. Whereas flash, it's a different case. We have seen flash memory storing the values, storing the values even after the power is removed. how to understand the difference between microprocessor and microcontroller. This is again a very common question, Rajesh. So microcontroller will have on-chip peripherals, whereas microprocessor will not have any on-chip peripherals. When I say on-chip peripherals, you will have a provision to communicate with other devices. You will have internal memory. These are called as peripherals. I hope I have answered all your questions. Is the Dojo one chip in Tesla is an embedded system based? Yes, the answer is yes. But I don't know the chip name which is used in Tesla, but it is an embedded system. The definition goes very simple. Any dedicated embedded hardware doing a dedicated functionality, it's embedded. So 64-bit is better than 32-bit MCU. Why every interviewer focuses on focus on 32 bits? See, 32 bit is very widely used. Uh, that's why, that's the reason again. Very widely used. Middleware layer and firmware layer are same. There is a slight difference actually. MCAL can be equated with firmware. Middleware is sometimes may have or may contain OS, may contain code and the library and board support package that are associated with onboard peripherals also. To some extent, they can be compared, and we can say yes also. Both middleware and firmware are same. There are different schools of definition for doing it. That's a nice question, Rajesh, actually. That's all I have. That's it from my side. Thanks for your patience and thanks for listening.